text came in at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I remembered the time exactly because I'd just gotten home from a double shift, still had my work lanyard around my neck, hadn't even taken my shoes off yet. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter and I picked it up thinking it was my boyfriend checking in. It wasn't. After everything we've done for you, you've chosen to be selfish and cruel. Don't bother coming to Christmas. Don't call. You are no longer welcome in this family. My mom's name was at the top of the screen. I read it 3 times. Then I set my phone face down on the counter, walked to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and sat on the edge of the tub fully clothed for about 10 minutes. I didn't cry. I think I was too tired to cry. What I felt, more than anything, was this strange, hollow kind of calm. Like something I'd been dreading for years had finally just arrived. And now that it was here, it almost felt like relief. Let me back up. I'm 31. I work as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. I make decent money. Not great, not tech startup money, but enough that I have a 1-bedroom apartment I'm proud of, a car that's paid off, and a small emergency fund I've spent years building. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. And in my family, stable meant I was the ATM. It started small, the way these things always do. My brother is 4 years older than me. He's 35, and for as long as I can remember, he's had a gift for starting things and not finishing them. A semester of community college. A landscaping business that lasted 1 summer. A partnership with a friend that I never fully understood and that definitely involved some money disappearing. He's not a bad person. I want to be clear about that. But he's never once in his adult life stood on his own 2 feet for longer than about 6 months at a stretch. My parents have always made excuses for him. He just needs time. He's figuring it out. He had a rough go of things. And somehow, over the years, figuring it out started to include me. It started when I was 26. My brother called me, not texted, actually called, which should have been my first warning, and said he was 3 weeks behind on rent and his landlord was about to file. He needed $800, just to get through the month. He'd pay me back as soon as he picked up more shifts. I said yes. I transferred the money that night. He never paid me back. But he also never mentioned it again, which I think he interpreted as me forgiving the debt. I interpreted it as me being too conflict-averse to bring it up. 6 months later, he needed $500 for a car repair. He couldn't get to work without the car. I said yes. Then it was $300 for a vet bill for his dog, which, I will say, I don't regret because the dog is innocent in all of this. Then my parents started relaying the requests, not asking for themselves. My parents owned their house outright. My dad had a pension. They were fine. But passing along my brother's needs like they were dispatching them from some kind of family clearinghouse. Your brother needs help with his electric bill. Your brother's trying to get back on his feet. You know how much it would mean to us if you helped him out. I kept a running total in my head. By the time I turned 29, I had loaned, given, really, let's be honest, my brother somewhere north of $6,000. No paperwork, no repayment schedule, just my money, gone. And here's the part I'm most ashamed of. I never said no, not once, not directly. I'd sometimes slow walk a response, say I had to check my budget, quietly transfer less than what was asked. But I'd never looked anyone in the eye and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I told myself I was keeping the peace. What I was really doing was buying time before the next ask. Things shifted when I started dating my boyfriend, Nate. Nate is practical in the way that I am not. He grew up in a family where money was tight, but everyone pulled their weight, and he has a very low tolerance for what he calls manufactured helplessness. When I told him, about 4 months into our relationship, how much I'd set my brother over the years, he went very quiet. Does he ever ask how you're doing? Nate said. Like, call you just to talk? I thought about it, really thought about it. No, I said. Does your family ask about your job, your apartment, your life? They ask if I'm seeing anyone. But not what you're working on, what you care about, what's hard for you. I didn't answer because the answer was obvious. Nate didn't tell me what to do. He's not that kind of person. But that conversation was the first time I saw the dynamic clearly. Like someone had cleaned a window I'd been looking through for years without realizing how cloudy it was. I started saying no that fall. Not dramatically, not with a speech or an ultimatum, just no. My brother texted asking if I could cover part of his security deposit for a new apartment. I texted back that I wasn't in a position to help right now. He sent 3 follow-up texts. I didn't respond to any of them. My mom called 2 days later. "He's really counting on you," she said. "I know," I said, "but I can't this time." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "I don't know what's gotten into you lately." I said, "Nothing's gotten into me. I just can't help right now." She brought up Nate, said she wondered if he was influencing me. I told her that my financial decisions were my own. She said she'd talk to me later and hung up before I could respond. Over the next few weeks, the texts from my brother went from requests to grievances. He said I was abandoning the family. He said I'd changed. He said that when he was doing better, he hoped I remembered who was there for him and who wasn't. I remember staring at that last text for a long time. Was there for him. As if I hadn't spent 5 years being there for him, financially, consistently, without a single thank you that I can remember. Christmas that year was awkward but survivable. My mom made a few pointed comments about people who forgot where they came from. My brother didn't speak to me directly for most of the day. My dad stayed out of it, which was his standard move. He was a good man who had learned a long time ago that the path of least resistance in our family was silence. I drove home that night feeling relieved to be in my own car, to my own quiet. January and February passed. My brother sent one more request, $200 for something I can't even remember now, and I said no again. Same as before. Short, not unkind, just no. March is when things escalated. I work with a woman I'll call my coworker. We'll say her name is Bev, though that's not her real name, who knew my family casually because she'd met my mom at a company holiday party 2 years ago. They'd exchanged numbers for some reason I'd never fully understood. In March, my mom reached out to Bev. I found out because Bev pulled me aside in the break room one Thursday morning and looked genuinely uncomfortable. She said my mom had texted her asking if I seemed okay, if I'd been acting different, and had mentioned, casually, like it was just information, that I'd been cutting off my family and that she was worried about me. I felt my face go hot. "She texted you," I said. "She did," Bev said. "She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else." I didn't respond. I just thought you should know. I thanked her and went back to my desk and sat there for about 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. My mother had contacted my coworker. Not a close friend of the family, not a mutual relative, my coworker, to tell her a version of events designed to make me look unstable, or cold, or both. I went home that night and Nate could tell something was wrong the second I walked in. I told him what Bev had said. He sat with it for a minute and then said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" I said I wanted to call my mom and ask her directly. So I did. She picked up on the second ring. "Did you contact Bev?" I asked. A pause. Then, "I was just checking on you. By reaching out to someone I work with." She seemed like a kind person. I was worried. "Mom." I kept my voice flat. "You contacted my coworker to tell her I was cutting off the family. That's not checking on me." She pivoted immediately, started talking about how I'd changed, how I used to be closer with everyone, how my brother was struggling and I knew how sensitive he was, how the family needed to stick together. Her voice got thicker. I'd heard this before. The part where tears entered the conversation and suddenly the things she'd done got replaced by how I'd made her feel. "I'm not going to keep funding a dynamic that isn't healthy," I said. "That's not abandoning anyone. That's just, I'm not doing it anymore." "So that's it?" she said. Her voice had gone cold. "You decided you're better than us." "That's not what I said." "That's what you mean." The call ended shortly after. I don't even remember who hung up first. 2 weeks later, the text arrived. "After everything we've done for you, you've chosen to be selfish and cruel. Don't bother coming to Christmas. Don't call. You are no longer welcome in this family." I'd spent a lot of time thinking about how to respond to a message like that. The version of me from 5 years ago would have called back immediately, crying, apologizing for things I hadn't done, trying to fix it. The version of me from 2 years ago would have sent a long, carefully worded text explaining my position, laying out the facts, hoping logic would land somewhere. What I actually did was wait until the next morning. I got up, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table in the quiet, and thought about every dollar. Every quiet, yes. Every time I transferred money on a Friday night, hoping it would buy me a few weeks of peace. I thought about Bev's face in the break room. I thought about my brother's text, who was there for him, and how 5 years of financial support hadn't earned me a single conversation where someone asked how I was doing. Then I picked up my phone and typed one sentence. Okay, just so we're on the same page, my wallet's leaving the family too. I sent it and put my phone down and went to get more coffee. By the time I came back, my phone was ringing. I didn't answer. It rang again. Then again. I made myself eat breakfast. Eggs, toasts, the ordinary details of an ordinary morning, while my phone lit up over and over on the other side of the table. By noon, I had 14 missed calls. By evening, 23. Not one voicemail. That told me everything. Because if this had been about grief, about genuinely missing me, about any real desire to talk, someone would have left a voicemail. You leave voicemails for people you want to reach. You call 23 times for people you want to control. Nate came over that evening and I showed him my phone. He looked at the missed calls log, then looked at me. You doing okay? He asked. Yeah, I said. And I meant it. Not in a numb way, not in a suppressing it way. I actually meant it. He stayed for dinner. We watched something dumb on TV. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb and slept better than I had in months. The text continued for about 2 weeks. My brother sent several that ranged from guilt-laden to outright hostile. My mom sent a few more, including one that was just, "We raised you better than this." My dad sent one, just one, that said, "I hope you're okay. No pressure, no guilt, no ultimatum. Just that." I saved that one. I didn't respond to any of them. I know how that sounds. I know some people reading this are thinking, I should have tried harder, explained more, given it another chance. And maybe they're right. Maybe there was a version of this where I had some long, cathartic, tearful conversation and we all came to understand each other and things got better. But I've had a version of that conversation approximately a dozen times over the past 5 years. I've explained, apologized, attempted, hoped. Nothing changed. The requests continued. The rectitude never came. The interest in my actual life, my work, my relationship, my goals, was non-existent unless those things could be leveraged into more access to my money. What changed when I said no wasn't the relationship. There was no relationship. What changed was the money flow. And that told me everything I needed to know about what I'd actually been to them. I unblocked my dad after a month. We talk occasionally now. Short calls, neutral topics, a careful kind of peace. He doesn't ask about my brother. I don't bring up the rest of it. He's not a perfect person, but he sent that one text, and sometimes one honest text is enough. My brother and my mom are still blocked. I don't say that with drama. I say it the way you'd say you stopped eating something that made you sick. It's just a fact now. A decision I made and then made again and then stopped having to make because it became settled. I'm not sure I'll keep it that way forever. People change sometimes, circumstances shift. But for right now, for today, I need the quiet more than I need the connection. And that's okay. I'm allowed to need that. The morning after Nate and I talked about the missed calls, I sat down and opened a spreadsheet. Not to calculate what I was owed. I knew that number would never matter, would never result in a check, and that chasing it would only keep me tethered. I opened it to track what I was doing with my money now. Savings account, automated. Emergency fund topped off. A small investment account I'd been meaning to start for 2 years, finally opened. I don't know how much I gave my family over those 5 years. My rough mental accounting puts it somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000, possibly more if I count the times I picked up full tabs at family dinners, paid for car rides, quietly spotted my brother a 20 here and there without logging it anywhere. It's gone. I made peace with that. What's not gone is the habit I built on the other side of it. The habit of saying no to things that hurt me. The habit of not explaining myself 17 times to people who aren't listening. The habit of sleeping soundly in an apartment that is entirely mine, in a life I built without anyone's permission, next to someone who has never once looked at my bank account as a resource he was owed. I still wear my work lanyard sometimes when I come home tired. I still check my phone first thing in the morning. Some evenings when it's quiet, I'll catch myself tensing up, bracing for something. A message, a request, a guilt-laden call. And then I remember that I don't have to do that anymore. The silence that used to feel like an absence now feels like space. Like I finally have room to breathe in my own life. And I'll tell you something. I didn't know how badly I needed that room until I stopped filling it with everyone else's emergencies. If you're in the middle of something like this, if you're the one in your family that everyone calls when things go sideways, if you've given and started to feel like a utility instead of a person, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Your situation is yours. Your family is yours. But I'll tell you what I know. Saying no is not the same as saying, I don't love you. Setting a limit is not the same as abandonment. And someone who only reaches out when they need something from you isn't missing you when you pull back. They're missing what you are providing. That difference matters. It took me 5 years and 23 missed calls to really understand it, but I understand it now. There's a version of this story where I'm the villain. I know that. I've turned it over in my head enough times to see it from every angle. A daughter who stopped helping her family. A sister who went cold. Someone who chose a boyfriend's influence over blood. I understand how it looks from the outside. And for a long time, I let that outside view be louder than my own. What I've come to understand, slowly, imperfectly, the way you understand most things that actually matter, is that what I did wasn't cruelty. It was consequence. For years, I gave without limit, without condition, without a single boundary. And the people on the receiving end learned, reasonably enough, that there were no limits and no conditions. That's not a character flaw in them. That's just cause and effect. I taught them who I was by what I allowed. When I changed what I allowed, everything shifted. That's not punishment. That's just how it works. The hard part isn't the decision itself. The hard part is that doing the right thing for yourself rarely feels clean. It feels like loss. It feels like guilt wearing the costume of grief. I had to learn to tell the difference. To ask myself whether I was actually grieving a relationship or grieving the version of myself that needed so badly to be accepted that I'd fund it with my own savings account. That distinction took me longer than I'd like to admit. I think about Nate asking me quietly if my family ever called just to hear my voice. No agenda, no favor to ask, just to know how I was doing. And I couldn't answer him. Not because the answer was complicated, because it was obvious. That moment of clarity, that simple, honest question, is the kind of intelligence I'd been avoiding for years. Not book-smart intelligence. The kind that asks uncomfortable things and then actually listens to the answer. I had to be willing to sit with what I heard, and then I had to do something with it. That's the part nobody talks about. You can understand a situation perfectly and still not change anything. Understanding is only the beginning. The harder thing is carrying that understanding forward through the discomfort, through the missed calls and the guilt texts and the silence at Christmas, and still choosing yourself anyway. Not once, but again and again, until the choice becomes quiet. My dad's single text, "I hope you're okay," still sits in my phone. No follow-up, no pressure, just that. I think about what it takes to be that kind of person in a family like ours. To see the chaos and choose decency anyway. To not weaponize love. There's a moral weight to that kind of restraint that I didn't fully appreciate until I was on the other side of it. I'm not the same person I was when I transferred that first $800. I don't think I could go back to her even if I wanted to. She was kind in the way that frightened people are kind. Generous out of fear. Accommodating out of exhaustion. Present out of obligation. What I have now isn't perfect, but it's mine. The 23 missed calls will always be the clearest summary of everything I needed to know.